The cleaner arrived every morning at 6, before anyone else. Before the security guard finished his night shift, before the receptionists unlocked the front desk, before the generators were switched off and the main power came on. 6. He mopped the marble lobby floor in long, steady strokes. He wiped the glass entrance doors until they disappeared, until the only thing visible was Lagos outside and sky above it. He emptied the bins. He cleaned the bathrooms. He restocked the paper towels. Then he sat in the small room behind the staircase where the cleaning equipment was kept, and he drank tea from a flask and waited for the building to fill up around him. He had been doing this for 3 years. Nobody knew his name beyond the name on his ID tag. Bioden. Just Bioden. The cleaner. The man nobody looks at twice in a building full of people who are looking at each other. What nobody in that building knew. What the receptionist did not know. What the security guard did not know. What the 200 staff who walked past him every morning without looking up did not know. Was that the company whose floors he mopped every morning at 6 belonged to his son, and his son did not know his father was the man mopping the floor downstairs. Not yet, but that Tuesday morning in March, everything was about to change. Let me take you back to where this story begins. Not in Lagos. In a village in Ogun State called Iwoyi. 1999. Adunola was 22 years old and 7 months pregnant when her husband left. He did not leave loudly. Sigen was not a man who did loud things. He was quiet in the specific way of a man who has decided something and does not want to discuss it. He packed his things on a Thursday afternoon while Adunola was at the market. 1 bag, his good shoes, the money from the tin they kept under the bed, all of it. Every last note. He left a piece of paper on the kitchen table. It said, "I am going to Lagos. There is nothing here for me. Do not wait." That was all. No name at the bottom, as though even signing it was more than he was prepared to give her. Adunola came back from the market with a bag of tomatoes and a small piece of fish for the soup she was planning, and she put the bag down on the table on top of the paper, and she did not see it for 20 minutes. Then she moved the bag. She read it twice. Then she sat on the floor. Not because her legs gave out. She was not that kind of woman. She sat deliberately, lowered herself carefully, the way a 7 months pregnant woman lowers herself to the floor. And she sat there with the paper in a hand, and she stayed very still for a long time. Her neighbor Mama Taiwo found her there 40 minutes later, and Mama Taiwo said, "Adunola, what happened?" Adunola handed her the paper. Mama Taiwo read it. Mama Taiwo put the paper down and sat on the floor beside her, without saying anything, because she understood that this was not a moment for words. It was a moment for company. She sat with her. That is what women in villages do when something terrible arrives. They sit down beside it with the person it arrived for, so the person does not have to face it standing alone. Adunola's name before she married was Adunola Adis. She was from Iwoyi, originally, the second daughter of a farmer who had 6 children and land that produced enough to feed them and not much more. She had met Sigan at a church event in 1996. He was from a town 2 hours away. He had come to Iwoyi for a cousin's wedding and stayed 3 extra days because of Aduna. She was not immediately sure. He was persistent in the specific way of a man who has decided he wants something and has some charm to work with. She eventually said yes. They married in 1997. 2 years of a marriage that was not terrible, but was not what she had hoped for. Sigan worked at a provision store. He talked about Lagos. Often Lagos was always somewhere in the conversation, always waiting at the edge of every plan he made. He had a cousin in Lagos. The cousin had a business. There was opportunity. There was always opportunity in Lagos for men who wanted to believe there was. What Adunola did not know, what she would not find out until 3 years later, from a woman who came to Iwoyi and did not know. She was walking into information she should not share, was that the cousin in Lagos was not a cousin. She was a woman named Folake, who had known Sigan since secondary school, and who had been in Lagos waiting for Sigan to stop doing what Sigan called his village obligations and come back to where he really wanted to be. Adunola was the village obligation. Her son, growing 7 months large in her belly, was the village obligation. Sigan went back to where he really wanted to be. He left them behind. The baby came 6 weeks later. A boy. Healthy. Loud. The specific loudness of a child who arrives into difficulty and immediately decides to announce himself anyway. Adunola named him Oluwatimilehin. It means, God is with me. She shortened it to Timi. She told anyone who asked that Timi's father had gone to work in Lagos and would send for them soon. She said this for 1 year, then she stopped saying it. She did not say he was gone. She did not say he had left. She did not say the word abandoned in relation to herself or her son because she did not have room for that word in the life she was building. She had a child to raise. She went back to school. This is the part of the story that people do not expect. Adunola had finished secondary school before the marriage. She had wanted to go further. There had been talk of a secretarial course in Abeo, but the marriage had arrived and the plans had been adjusted accordingly. Now she adjusted them back. Her mother took Timi in the mornings. Adunola took a bus to Abeokuta 3 times a week. She did the secretarial course. Then she did an accounting course. Then she got a job with a small company in Abeokuta as a junior accounts clerk. She was 24 years old. She had a 1-year-old son. She had a mother who helped her. She had no husband. She had enough. She built on it. Year by year. Course by course. Job by job. She moved to Abeokuta properly when Timi was 4. She moved to Ibadan when Timi was 9. A better job. More money. A small apartment with a room for Timi that had a window with a view of the street. And he used to sit at that window and watch the city with the specific attention of a boy who is storing everything he sees for later use. She moved to Lagos when Timi was 14. By then, she was a senior accounts manager. By then, she had learned at night courses, at weekend seminars, from books she borrowed and bought, and annotated in the margins. Everything she could learn about how businesses worked. Not because someone told her to, because something in her understood that the distance between where she was and where she needed to be was made of knowledge, and she intended to cross it. Timi grew up watching his mother cross it. Every single day he watched her choose the harder thing and do it anyway. He did not need anyone to tell him what kind of person to become. He had a demonstration in his own house every morning before school. Timi started his company at 26. A logistics company, small at fierce to Vance. 3 staff. An office that was really just a room in a building in a... He understood logistics the way some people understand music, instinctively, in the structure of it, and the way things needed to move, to get from one place to another efficiently. He had worked for 2 logistics companies during his NYSC year and the year after. He had watched both of them make the same mistakes with different faces and different excuses. He believed he could do it without those mistakes. He was right. By the time Timi was 30, the company had 12 vans. By 32, it had a proper office building in Lekki 5 floors, 200 staff, contracts with companies whose names people recognized. He named the company at Logistics at Oluwatimilehin. His mother's name and his own. He did not explain this to most people. He did not need to. He knew what it meant. She knew what it meant. That was enough. Life often unfolds in unexpected encounters. For Timi, a successful man, a quiet morning held a profound surprise. In the dim light of an office hallway, 2 worlds were about to collide. A fleeting moment, an accidental brush, and then a familiar shadow. A name, a place, and the weight of years hung heavy in the air. The past, long buried, resurfaced in a single, startling recognition. A son, now a man, stood before the father he barely knew. The silence spoke volumes. A lifetime of unspoken words. An invitation extended with quiet resolve. To face what was lost. A simple gesture, picking up a fallen mop, bridging a chasm. Later, in an office of success, the truth began to unfold. Timi spoke of strength, of a mother's resilience, of his own journey. He asked what was truly desired, what could mend the broken pieces, a plea for forgiveness, a wish to speak to Adunola, his mother, a phone call, a bridge built, hope for a new beginning.